Guys, welcome back to the coffee bar. My second sip and review coming back. I definitely want to go ahead and talk about the Matrix Resurrections. I was able to go ahead and see this in theaters. First and foremost, I will say this before I get into my review and big breakdown and all of that. I would recommend going to see this movie in the theaters. Of course, it is on HBO Max and probably any other torrent site that you can find right now. But I will say with the visuals and some of the cinematography, I would recommend going ahead and checking it out in theaters as opposed to HBO Max. But I mean, I understand if you're still a little bit weary about getting to the theaters. If you can't, you can't. I understand. In any case, the biggest thing right now, the Matrix Resurrections, a lot of people want to know my opinion on whether it was worth it, whether it was worth making, this, that, and the other. We'll get right into this. I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and, some of the ugly in this movie. First and foremost, I do want to give you the premise of what's going on here. This is, for all intents and purposes, a new version of The Matrix. And this new version of The Matrix has Keanu Reeves' Neo trapped in it actually as a game designer. And they've made The Matrix 1, 2, and 3 basically a game that he's made. So they're having him think that this is all in his mind, that he's actually a regular person, and he's back to being Thomas Anderson. So we are back in the start of the first movie, first callback. His name is Thomas Anderson. The cool thing about this movie is, don't get me wrong, I would say it's a soft reboot. With Keanu Reeves coming back to reprise his role and Carrie-Anne Moss coming back to reprise her roles as Trinity. That being stated, everyone else is new. We even have a new Mr. Smith. He was okay. I do want to say that he was okay. I didn't like when he said Mr. Anderson. It just doesn't feel as threatening as when Hugo Weaving goes Mr. Anderson. That deep growly voice. It's just when he says Mr. Anderson, you know it's gonna be trouble. But he does have his part where he does say Mr. Anderson, and it's supposed to be kind of reminiscent of the first Smith saying Mr. Anderson. And one of the things I didn't like, I will be honest with you, is I didn't like when he said that. However, I did still like his character. A lot of people are asking me about the new quote-unquote Morpheus, who actually isn't Morpheus when you actually go break it down. He is what they call a module, which is a combination of things from Smith, as a matter of fact, and things from Morpheus, the two people that made Neo who he is, two of the three people that made Neo who he was in the first three Matrix movies. So Neo actually makes this person as an experiment to, in his mind, actually free him from the current Matrix version. So it's I was okay with it. I was okay with Yaya's performance as the new Morpheus. This movie made itself very self-aware, where he knew he wasn't the original Morpheus, and he kind of tried to say things that Morpheus said in the first movie, trying to get Thomas to become Neo. He said certain phrases, and it worked for me. It worked for me. He was a little bit more playful. He wasn't as serious, and this movie didn't take itself super serious, which for me it helped. With this runtime being about 2.5 hours, the suspense in the first half kept my attention, and the action in the second half kept my attention. So on to some things that I did, some more things that I did like. Excuse me. I did like the character Bugs. I did like her. I think it will probably be revealed later on that maybe Trinity and Neo's kid or something like that. But I did enjoy her character. It was a play on the whole rabbit thing, which, if you all are familiar with the first movie, Neo, or Thomas at the time, had to follow the white rabbit in order to get to Trinity, which got him to, getting to know Morpheus and the blue pill and the red pill thing. I like that the callbacks weren't where throughout the movie, I think the flashbacks kind of had me a little off, because if I was a new person watching this, I wouldn't understand the callbacks that they had. However, I think they did enough exposition dumping via dialogue that if you were a new person watching this, you would be able to catch up quite easily. This movie definitely relied a lot on nostalgia. As a matter of fact, so people that are fans of the Matrix, I do think that you would probably put it at a tie with the second Matrix, maybe right above it or right below it, depending on if things work for you or not. But it definitely didn't top the first one. The biggest thing that I did like, and I'll get back into some things that I didn't like, but the biggest thing that I did like, outside of the nostalgia, outside of the callbacks with, Smith and Anderson and all of those, were the connections that we already knew were there, but they actually pretty much spelled it out for us. The connection between Smith and Neo. Once, mild spoilers here, I'm not going to spoil the whole movie for you all, but mild spoilers here. The connection between Smith and Neo, once Neo pretty much kind of freed himself. If you saw in the previews, he was taking these blue pills, which were the blue pills to keep him under control. But once he stopped taking them, he started more and more trying to wonder about his past, and started to think he was quote unquote crazy and everything was in his mind. It's because his mind was freeing itself. And he did end up taking the red pill at the end of the day. That being stated, once he freed himself, Smith automatically starts to free himself from the program, and he starts to act as himself again. And they both have a common enemy in this, which is called the Analyst, played by Neil Patrick Harris, and I think he played the part really well. Neil Patrick Harris is the new quote-unquote bad guy in this movie, and he's also a successor to, if you guys remember, I want to say he's introduced in the second movie. His name was the Architect. So he's the successor to the Architect, because after the Matrix went ahead and rebooted again, even though it was supposed to be done with, they purged a lot of the old programs, including the Oracle. So unfortunately, everything that Neo did didn't, promise peace forever, but he did change some things, and we'll get into that in a second. Moving forward, like I said, I did like Bugs. I did like some of the newer characters. They were kind of like background characters, like we saw before. Once Thomas came over to being Neo, but Carrie-Anne Moss as Trinity, I think we could have used a little bit more of her. I'm not gonna be mad at it, but I liked when they showed her. And like I said, moving on through the story as far as connections go, we saw the connection between Neo and Trinity, which I think if you go back and if you watch this movie and go back and look at the first three, what wasn't said was pretty much spelled out here, but you'll actually notice, it makes sense that Neo and Trinity are they are one. This is a love story between the three movies. And if you pay attention to this movie, like I said, I don't want to put in too many spoilers. But if you look at the first movie, Neo dies and Trinity brings him back to life. Then if you look at the second movie, Trinity dies and Neo brings her back to life. It's like they won't let each other die. But in the third movie, you see Trinity actually finally dies for good. And in that case, Neo goes ahead and he does what he has to do, but he's super willing to sacrifice himself at this point and go ahead and die. He doesn't at this point, he doesn't have anything to hold on to. Now in this fourth movie, we see that Resurrections is exactly what it is, and if you dive a little bit deeper into the movie, that's exactly what they did. They resurrected Neo, but they couldn't resurrect him without Trinity, because he basically kept letting go. He didn't care anymore without Trinity. So together, they're pretty much unstoppable. So the Analysts basically figured out a plan in order to keep them together but separate. So they were in the Matrix together, strong enough to go ahead and power the new Matrix, but they were separate enough where they wouldn't break free. And of course, we all know that actually goes awry, and that's where the new Morpheus is, where the new Morpheus shows the connection of friendship between Morpheus and Neo. Even though he was a amalgamation of Smith and Morpheus, he was still, a main part that knew Neo enough to know what it took to free his mind. So, like I said before, this movie, it does tread some previous ground as far as the first Matrix. It kind of hits some of the same beats, hear some of the same phrases. You see some of the same people, including, Mr. Smith, Morpheus. Even the Merovingian was in this, and he is not happy. A lot of the old programs that were from the first three movies got purged, but the Merovingian and some of his henchmen were still there. He was a little bit more crazy. He kind of reminded me of if you all seen John Wick, Lawrence Fishburne's character in John Wick. He's kind of like maybe more of a king of the homeless, and that's what the Merovingian kind of reminded me of in this movie. I could have took or left the Merovingian, to be honest with you. It was a cool, I guess, callback, but he wasn't as sleek and as dapper as he was in the second and third movie. He was more of a, like I said, he's more dirty, more grimy, a little bit more homeless. So yeah, I could have took or left him, to be honest with you. It was just cool to know who he was. As soon as I seen him, I knew exactly who he was, especially when he started speaking French, I believe he's speaking. That being stated, some other things that I could have done without. I didn't like the way they used Neo's powers as like basically a Deus Ex Machina, where every time it seemed like he was in trouble, his powers would quote unquote emerge, and then he wasn't able to fully control them. Which I get it. They were trying to say he kind of lost his mojo since he's been in the Matrix for so long, the new version. But I wish they would have kind of wrote that part a little bit better, to be honest with you. Carrie-Anne Moss all the way around. I loved her character. I love her arc, where she now is on the level of Neo, and you'll know what I mean once you watch the movie. But I like that. I like the way they, even though I said I didn't like the way they kind of Deus Ex Machina, the whole power thing. I did like the part where he thought he could fly, and you saw the ground kind of ripple like he used to, and he kind of tries to jump up and nothing happens. He's like, no, I can't fly. So I did kind of like that. But like I said, the action was great. We got some cool callbacks. Another callback that we got was Niobe, Jada Pinkett's character. She was kind of old because it took about 60 years for them to find Neo, and it was so funny because they were making fun of the fact that Keanu Reeves doesn't really age a whole lot, and they had her really make up out as a really older person since it's been 60 years later. But her character was a little bit more like the general in the second and third movie, and I don't know how I feel about that, because she knew how they got to where they were with Neo, and when he came back, like the first thing she does is like have a talk with him, reminisce with him, and then throws him in jail. So I don't know how I really feel about that, but it was a great addition to the movie. I will say that I didn't mind it being her. It makes sense that it was her, because she did live through the war, and she did, see the end of, for all intents and purposes, that war that was going on at that time with Zion. And moving forward, other characters that I did like seeing, and I was, kind of pointing at the screen. If you've seen the Leonardo DiCaprio meme, I was kind of pointing at the screen. Sati comes back. If you remember her, she was the little girl in the second and third movie, especially the third movie, that was a program that Neo kind of, started taking care of. The Oracle was kind of taking care of her. She was making cookies with her and whatnot, and she's a program that can really have an effect on the Matrix as well, just not as powerful as the one. That being stated, she does come back, and she does help with freeing Trinity and things of that nature. She's kind of been a friend of Niobe's the whole time, which I like that callback. That's something I definitely liked about the movie, that they called back to her, because she was pretty important, especially in that third movie. Moving forward, I did also like the fact that now the programs with limits could come into the real world now. If Mr. Smith, how Mr. Smith kind of transported over, now they have this kind of digitalization, hard digitalization, where they can come over into the real world when they're unplugged from the Matrix. They can come and see the people over, and they are, a lot of the machines are actually accomplices to the humans, which is helping them to build a new city where there's the bio sun, and they're actually growing fruit and things of that nature. That was a pretty big point in the movie, where they're not eating the slop and stuff like they were in the first 3 movies. They're kind of advancing, which I did like the growth and the world building of this movie as well. I did like that, they did have machines that were on their side that were willing to help. That makes sense from the war. So Neo doesn't feel like all of his work was in vain. He did it first, but once he sees this, he knows that all of his work is not in vain. Some things I didn't like I stated before, I didn't like the Deus Ex Machina with Neo's powers. I didn't love Smith, but I didn't dislike him. I didn't absolutely love the new Morpheus, but I didn't dislike him. I love Yahya. He's pretty banging right now. One of the, I would say, top actors right now. I love his acting. But I gotta say, I didn't absolutely love it. But I understand why they did it. I understand that they're looking for new people to play these roles, kind of bringing it to the new age. Overall, I don't have too many complaints about this movie, but it didn't jump out at me. I will say that. I was impressed that it held my attention for as long as it did, because personally, honestly, if I'm being honest with myself, I went to see the movie because I had seen the first 3, and it's like, this the 4th one. I gotta see exactly what it's about, or if it's a movie that exists just to exist. I think it did enough different to warrant maybe the next movie, but they're gonna have to bring it with the next movie. I will say, I mildly enjoyed this movie. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. I have seen some people say it was terrible. I didn't like the runtime. It was 2.5 hours, but I mean, we're world building, and they did a lot of that in this movie, so I can respect that as well. Overall, I would give this movie a 6.5 cups of coffee out of 10. Especially if you're, someone that followed the Matrix movies, the first 3, you will definitely get some nostalgia there, and you'll be able to, the different lines that they throw in there from the first movie, like the "I still know kung fu" and stuff like that. You'll love that part. But as far as world building is great, cinematography is great, but as far as like execution, I feel like, if you've ever seen gymnastics where they kind of stick the landing, but they bounce a little bit and they take off points for that, that's exactly what this movie did for me. It made it interesting enough for me to want to see what happens in the next movie if they make one. The characters, the actors, they did a decent enough job for me to want to see them again. But I gotta be honest with you, it wasn't jumping out for me like Spider-Man No Way Home. So I hate to say it, but yeah, I like I said, I'm gonna stick to my guns here and give it a 6.5 out of 10. You guys let me know what you all think in the comments below. Also, check out the drink. I am going to be posting this on TikTok and on my Facebook page. Also on my YouTube page. Like, share, and subscribe at Drink More Coffee on TikTok as well, so you can see more drinks like this. This is called The Matrix, and you all be able to see how I made it and what I put in it. So you can make one at home yourself right before you watch the movie on HBO Max, or right after you go to the movie from there. Remember, guys, this has been the Coffee Bar 2.0. Like, share, and subscribe once again. I love you guys. You all take care of yourself in this time. And also, a few days before, but Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.